presentation on payment plans and payment extensions module. Emersion has obviously enabled these modules for all of our clients to encourage them to use them and of course help them collect their money during our difficult times of COVID-19. Fortunately, we're very positively hearing from most of our clients that it hasn't affected them too much, which is nice to have, but we're happy to help in any way we can. So before we start, this webinar is being recorded and may be used in further documentation, training, marketing and sales materials. By participating in this webinar, any questions or comments you make may be included in the recording. Please post any questions in the chat window as you have them, and we'll also open the floor to questions at the end of the webinar. Today we'll spend a little bit of time covering off the payment plan module, payment extensions, some of the requirements and how to set up these modules, and of course what we're doing post the promotion period. So the first we'll talk about is the payment extension module. Now this module is relatively simple in its function, but quite powerful in its use. It allows the application of a once-off change to a customer's trading terms on a particular invoice. It only extends, however, one invoice at a time. A payment extension can be applied to the one invoice. It has no effect on the payable amount or adjustments to any of the financial transactions on that invoice. They can also be applied to disputed invoices. So approved and disputed invoices. There's a number of payment access controls around the payment extension module, and I'll show you the permissions in the user interface shortly. You can choose the limit of the amount of time your staff can set up the payment extension for. We've currently limited that to 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, or of course unlimited. And this allows you to give certain levels of control to your staff. So you may have a customer service operator that may only be allowed to extend a client by up to 7 days. We may have an operator that is in management that can apply up to a 30-day extension, or of course someone in the executive team that has unlimited access to extend payments on invoices. Then we have our payment plan module. Some of you will know as payment plan V2. This allows us to transfer debt on a customer to a repayment process and isolate it from the main collections processes of the customer. It provides a flexible payment schedule for your customers. You can have payments being taken on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, every 16 days if you'd like to. And it can be applied to all of an invoice, part of an invoice, or of course multiple invoices can be grouped into a single payment plan. It also allows you to offer mid-cycle payments in that you can set the frequency of those payments to be anything as described earlier. Payments, the only restrictions or requirements for someone to be on a payment plan is that the payment must be automatically collected via a payment gateway. So that means that if you have credit card, direct debit from bank, or manual payment batch using the manual payment batch functionality that's also classified as an automated payment gateway in Emersion, you can set up a payment plan. I'll show you in the user interface shortly how to do one. If these payments fail on multiple attempts, the payment plan will automatically be cancelled and the full amount of the payment plan will be calculated and become payable back on the customer's account. When payments are made, the amount payable is changed on the affected invoices in the application order that the payments are made. There are powers to modify control within your team as to who can create payment plans, who can modify the payment plans, and of course, who can cancel those payment plans. The rules around the payment plan module are quite simple. The customer must have an automated payment method enabled. The payment plans can only be on approved invoices with an outstanding balance, of course. The invoice, however, must not be in dispute. So you can't have a payment plan on an invoice that is disputed. You must resolve that dispute before applying the invoice to the payment plan. The invoice cannot be covered by another active payment plan. So you can't have two payment plans active on the same invoice at the same time. So both of these modules have now been activated for all current Emersion clients. And of course, if you refer us any customers during the period, we will enable those modules for them as well. Each module will, however, need to be enabled for your staff to use them. And I'll show you how to do that in the permissions section shortly. And of course, there is documentation available on our wiki for both payment plans and payment extensions. I believe Alex will be sending out a link to that documentation at the conclusion of this webinar.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so I'll now jump in to the user interface and show everyone how to set these up and how to use them. As I mentioned, there is information on the payment extensions module within the wiki and also within the payment plans module within the wiki. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to log in and we're going to ensure that we've got the access to the modules enabled and that our staff community that we wish to have them have access to the powers to be able to control these things. So if we go into our admin section under org units and roles, I will apply this to say the admin full powers user. We're going to go into the roles, to our admin full power user role. Wait briefly for the screen to refresh. We're going to first go to the module permissions, which will enable these modules for that role. And we're going to go down to P for payment plans and payment extensions and ensure that the tick boxes for both payment extensions and payment plans V2 have been enabled. If they have not, please enable them and then save the permission group. The second area that you have control and more granular control over these modules is in with the power-based permissions area. Obviously, as an admin full power user, by default, the base power is enabled. However, if you open up these and expand all and search on payment extension, you'll see that there are a number of controls for payment extension in here. The first is that you can provide access to control payment extensions. The second is that you can control that within an individual customer. So this one controls payment extensions from the finance section. This one controls it from within the individual account. And you can then define the level of permission assigned to this role, whether they can only set payment extensions for 7 days, 14 days, or 30 days. So if I set it just as 7 days, then it will only allow the 7-day payment. If I set it as 30 days, of course, it brings in the subordinate 14 and 7-day allowances as well. And then we have, of course, controls for payment plans. So the first is in the finance section. It allows you to view the payment plans. So this is for the finance team. And the second is a group just for payment plans by themselves. So this enables you to, within the customer, cancel, create, modify, or edit the number of retries on the payment plan so that you can provide the client a little bit more leeway if they've had a failed payment and contacted you. Please ensure that, particularly for the finance team, that you've enabled all of those settings and as appropriate for each of your staff groups via the roles, please enable those powers. Okay, so then how do we look for, how do we find these items? So the first thing I'll have a look for is under the finance section, which is where quite a number of these things are generally set up. And we have a payment extensions tab. This payment extensions tab, of course, shows the invoice issue date and the due date and the original due date. So you can see in this instance that the original due date for this invoice was the 21st of April and it has been extended to the 24th of April. So it's just a list or a view of the payment extensions that exist, and it gives you some control over seeing what's happened, how long those extensions have been. So in this case, the client's been given a 90-day extension. So we probably want to inquire as to whether that was a real extension or whether we have a staff member that has perhaps been a little excited and provided more extensions than makes sense. The other place we see this is in the accounts receivable section. When we look at the invoice list, let's just grab an approved invoice. We will also see the original due date and the due date of the invoice presented. So once again, you can see whether there has been a payment extension applied. And I can then say dive into this particular account balance test account, have a look at the invoices that are there. I can see once again on the invoice list within the client, the due date and the original due date. So in this case, the original due date was the 21st of April, and the due date has now been extended to the 24th of April. If I go into the Manage Invoice section, there is a button to apply a payment extension. As long as the permission has been enabled, that payment extension button will be present. You can apply a payment extension, and as you'll see from the date selector here, the payment extension can be moved back to 1 day after the original due date for the invoice, or any date in the future, depending on the level of permission available to me. So at the moment, this payment extension has been extended to the 24th of April. I've decided that this customer has been a nice person, and we're going to give them an extra few days to do that. So we're going to update that to the 28th of April, and we will apply the payment extension. If I conversely decided that I wish to remove that payment extension, I can change the date backwards to the 22nd of April, as you saw in the date selector. So you can effectively remove that payment extension by changing the date backwards. The effect of this payment extension is, of course, that the due date for that invoice has been changed. Therefore, in the event notification system, any of the events that trigger on due dates relative to the date will, of course, be modified. So if my due date plus 3 days invoice event notification is due to go out, it will now go out on the 28th of April plus 3 days, as opposed to the original 21st of April plus 3 days date. So that's payment extensions. It's a relatively simple function, but allows you to have good control over understanding when you're likely to be paid and what payment extensions have been applied. There are good permissions around that module, and it's nice and simple to use. Then we'll look at payment plans. So I'm just going to grab an account I know has a payment plan. So let's grab Sharon test account. This one here, I believe it is. So the first thing you'll notice is that popping up on the header bar of the account is the fact that there is a payment plan active for this account. So it just means your customer service team and your finance team, when they log into an account, have some visibility to the fact that there is a payment plan. There's a hyperlink within that header, so I can go straight to the payment plan if I wish. And that allows me to move into the payment plan tab and see what payment plans are in place. As you can see from the testing here, there's a couple of different payment plans. I can see the start date of the payment plan, the total amount of the payment plan, how much is remaining, how many transactions I've allowed for this payment plan, what the payment amount is for the next payment, has there been any declined payments, and of course who created it and who modified it. So in this case, I'm going to jump into this active payment plan here. Go back some screen real estate. I can see that there were a number of transactions forward forecast for this payment plan. If I have permission to update this payment plan, I can modify the individual dates on individual payments. And of course, I can cancel the payment plan if the client decides to pay the payment out early. There are no interest components or other things calculated on this payment plan. They would have to be manually calculated. And of course, the late payment fees and other things that would normally apply to an invoice if they were paid late will be removed as the client is on a valid payment plan. So once again, the notifications and events would be relative to the dates for payment plans as opposed to the original due dates on the invoices. And for that purpose, there have been additional events created and mapped to your accounts for payment plans, which I'll go through shortly. So I'm just going to, for the purposes of demonstration, cancel this payment plan, which will mean that all of those invoices are now due to be paid again, and we'll create a payment plan. So the first thing I see is all of the outstanding invoices when I hit the create button of the account. So I can select to have one or multiple of these invoices included in the payment plan. I can say that I've agreed with this customer that there's only $1,000 of this one and $1,000 of this one that's going in the payment plan, and the rest, I'm sorry, you can't have a payment plan for those. I need those paid now. So I'll just go and delete those. And I just want to confirm that these are the invoices that I'm selecting to go in the payment plan and the amounts. By default, of course, the amount payable comes up in the amount to pay. We then move into the payment plan itself. What date would I like to start this payment plan? I've agreed with the client he's going to pay every Monday going forward, so we'll start it on the 27th of April. And he's going to pay once a week. So every 7 days, I'm going to receive an amount against my $2,000 payment plan, and I'm going to allow him 10 weeks to pay off this payment plan. So that means that approximately $200 per week will be taken. I have another setting here to confirm the amount of days between retrying the automated payment method. So if I have a credit card, for example, that will mean that if the client's initial payment fails on the first day, we will try again on the second day. We may allow 2 days for leeway, for example. And how many times am I going to allow his payment method or her payment method to fail before I fail the entire payment plan? Generally, you'd be setting a 2 or a 3 here, depending on how tight you want to control the client. And then it will generate a schedule for you. So you'll see that that has generated, based on that setting, 10 payments of $200 with the dates set 1 week apart from one another. And I'm quite happy to leave that as is. If I needed to modify a particular date because I discovered it was going to be on a Saturday or something like that, I can move that to the following business day on that particular payment plan. And then I'll finalize the payment plan. So that payment plan is now set up, and I'll see that in the list as an active payment plan with a payment due on the 27th of April with the next payment amount of $200. So what's happening from here is a whole bunch of events and notifications will start to be triggered and sent out to the customer based upon the plan setup. So the events, let's have a quick look at the templates that we can see. Plan. So there's 3 different events that have been mapped to each of you. On the wiki, I believe Sharon has also put some templated examples of text that you might choose to put in these events, which match the ones I'm about to show you. So that payment plan being created was the first one that we've just done. So you'll see in the event here, I have variables in the body, variables in the header as per normal. So dear Fred, your payment plan has been set up, and this payment plan schedule includes the number of payments, number of installments, and this variable called transactions will actually generate an array or a table of the payments that have been applied to the payment plan with the dates and the amounts, so the customer's very clear on what they've agreed to in the payment plan. The second is what happens when it fails. So obviously the payment plan is cancelled. Basically it says you failed, we've tried a number of times, please pay in full or come back and talk to us about re-entering another payment plan. Whatever you choose is the most appropriate kind of text within that. And of course, the third is your payment plan has been successful. Thank you very much. Your payment has now been completed. We appreciate you as a customer and helping you through these challenging times. There are also some reports that will have been mapped for you regarding payment plans and payment extensions. And we'll make sure that in the documentation we send out to you, we list those reports for you as well to ensure that they are there. Plan, I think they're under finance. No, maybe they're under billing. There are definitely reports around payment extensions. So this payment extension report reflects the same information that was in the finance section that I showed you of all active payment extensions. So this payment extension report, for example, shows you when they were issued, when they were from, who did it, etc. So if you need to audit a particular staff member to understand whether they're a bit generous with payment extensions for some training purposes, you can do that from this report. And of course, there's some reports around payment plans as well. There's a couple of questions come through. First one is just wondering if you can apply a payment extension of X number of days to a particular customer by default for all of their invoices. This is a question that I'm actually working through with Olga for you. So the short answer is currently no. This question relates to a customer that wants to provide weekly payments to an account by default, even though they're generating invoices on a monthly basis. At the moment, you would have to create a payment plan for each of those invoices. So it's not currently available in the system. Okay, so I'll go back to our presentation for a second. We have not charged and will not charge any additional setup fees. Even if you decide you don't wish to proceed with using the payment plan and payment extension module at the end of the promotion period, we will not charge additional setup fees for disabling it or re-enabling it. There will be no monthly access fees till the 1st of November. That also includes clients that have previously had payments against that. We will credit those amounts to their account. However, from the 1st of November onwards, we're working through a fee structure that makes sense. We'll, of course, provide you 30 days notice prior to the 1st of November so that if you wish to cancel the use of this function, we can allow you to do that. Or, of course, we'll agree on a fee structure for you. Hopefully, we've moved through the COVID-19 situation at that time, and it'll be a little easier for everyone to manage their cash.